Session number 1, Shane Gray and Ron Krischer, both countdown contenders. Ron Krischer's really struggled since the countdown started, but he did not struggle on this pass. He goes to number 1 with a great 6.65 at 207 miles per hour.
And then in session 2, here comes Mike Edwards and Greg Anderson. But keep an eye on Edwards. He goes number 1. 7 races ago was the last time a car not owned by Ken Black went number 1.
Then in session number 3, you're on board with Roger Brogdon. The former national record holder came into the session, not into the field, but he makes a nice pass to just sneak in and get in with a 6.71 elapsed time.
And then Jason Line, well, he saw that pass by Mike Edwards and said, we can't let something like that stand. Here he is alongside of Erica Enders. They both have great runs. Jason Line goes number 1 with a 6.62, and Erica jumps up 8 positions to 3rd with a 6.63.
And Jason's been near number 1 qualifier 5 races in a row, but next up was Mike Edwards and Ron Krischer. Take a look at Mike Edwards. He says, we're not going to let him keep that number 1 spot. Runs a great 6.61 at 210 miles per hour to take it away from Jason.
And so the Pro Stock standings, that battle back and forth between Jason Line and Mike Edwards at the top. Greg Anderson sits 3rd, and Vincent Nobile, the rookie, sits in 8th.
And the field is set as we look at the bottom 8. You see Larry Morgan, Greg Stanfield up there 9th and 10th. Kurt Johnson 13th, and his dad Warren on the bump with a 6.71.4.
And coming up, we look at the Pro Stock who have not yet qualified, Gordy Rivera and Grace Howell. Now, there's Roger Brogdon. You see him backing up. Just think about it. I mean, he was the record holder. He set the record-setting run at Gainesville, and now he's 6th quickest in Pro Stock. Arizona National, 7 o'clock on Sunday with just 3 races left to go in the countdown to the championship. We're on the air on ESPN2, and of course we're live at 11 o'clock in the morning on ESPN3.
Paul, you mentioned about setting that national record back in Gainesville, but not only is he now only the 6th quickest based off of that run, he's really struggling here this week, and he's only good enough for the 15th position with that 6.71.2 elapsed time. So obviously they're going to try to step that thing up, as is V Gaines. V's in the number 13 spot with a 6.69.4.
I always love what they put on the back of the car. Change it every run. So Roger Brogdon 15th, V Gaines is 13th, both moving up. The Pro Stock field, as Mike said, is set. Warren Johnson is at the bottom of the field, 16th with a 6.71.
I mean, it'd be really tough to move in the top 8, but if you're going to do that, you're going to have to run quicker than Vincent Nobile's 6.65 with an 8.
V.
Gaines spun the tires big time when he let the clutch out. Roger goes up, makes a nice pass.
And moves up.
Yeah, 6.66 with an 8 elapsed time, moves him up to the number 10 spot. But I think they'll take that with these conditions right now.
So Brogdon up to 10th, and Gaines remains in 14th. And we're qualifying the 4th, the final 7 session, with Alan Johnson coming up to the line. Nobile is supposed to be here. His car is way back there in the staging lanes, and the report is coming now that he broke. Are they going to bring it to the line? Try and get, can they push start it? It's not starting, Mike.
Nah, I remember Kurt Johnson tried that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow it in the final Charlotte a couple of years ago. But yeah, it sounds like the starters broke, just not engaging. Probably sheared the teeth off either the starter gear and won't turn the motor over. Tough break. He is qualified. I mean, he's your number 8 qualifier. He's in the top half. But boy, with conditions like this on this racetrack, you really don't want to give up that data. You want to be able to make a run, see what your setup was going to do, and have good information going into tomorrow's eliminations.
So that'll bring Alan Johnson to the line on a single, his 3rd race in that car there, Mike.
Yeah, they switched from the Rick Jones car to Jerry Haas car at the beginning of the countdown. They've really struggled with this car. Still making good horsepower. Roy Johnson, the man building the engines, they went 209 miles per hour. They've just really been missing the setup on this new car, just trying to get it figured out.
I'm kind of obsessed, though, with the old paint job, you know, kind of like the shirts.
Take a look at there, Jim Yates. They brought Jim Yates in for this race to try to get a handle on this new race car because, as I said, they're making plenty of good horsepower. They just haven't been making good calls as far as the setup.
Looking for the numbers here on Alan Johnson, 665, 209 miles an hour. That is low of the session thus far. And how about Dave Reef? He has Del Worship. Is he okay now, Dave?
Absolutely. Del is very fine, and all the viewers that watched ESPN3 last night, our qualifying coverage, saw the same thing that we did. A very candid Del Worship, a very candid teammate, Larry Dixon, talking about the pain that Larry felt for Del. And I know Mike Dunn, as a former racer yourself, you know that pain as well. So, Del, when you think about the Top Fuel final and what happened, the quickest run that came up just short against Spencer Massey, what has those 2 weeks done to that memory for you?
Well, the first thing I tell you is it took probably it took basically getting back to the races right now to really feel like I was over. Not even so much over, but I felt like things were kind of okay right now. Got back in the car, made a run, and I'm glad I did that. You know, I kind of felt a little peaceful with myself at that point. And
in the interest of fair reporting, I can say you've also won 2 races this year on hole shots. In fact, you look over your entire career, 805 rounds of racing, only 2.3% of your races. 19 times have you ever been in this position before, so it doesn't happen very much. But you talked also last night about what did happen heading into the stage beams. Can you relive some of that?
Yeah, I can. You know, the first thing, after it all happened, it all took place, and I got done, you know, pouting a little bit at the finish line. I just started thinking, you know, as I was flying home, you know, and during the week, you know, what went wrong? What did I do to put myself in this position? Yeah. And even racing 21 years, you know, and the experience I've had and the things I've done, it didn't prepare me for what took place. And what really led up to it, the biggest thing that led up to it was that I really wanted the record. Yeah. I wanted the record bad, and I thought Spencer was going to run the record also. I honestly thought he would run a 374, and we would run a 374 right there, and you know, and it was going to be close. And so I'm really taking my time. You know, I'm trying to get the car staged very shallow and make sure that I'm not giving anything away on the starting line that way. So now I'm already thinking not about reaction times, I'm thinking about staging. Yeah. I also, you know, I wanted to stage first, and it's not a big deal, but it seems that every time I race Spencer Massey, if I let him stage first, he just welds me, you know. So I thought, you know, no matter what, I'm going to get stage first. Well, he did the best thing he could do. Once I rushed in there, he let me sit for a second, which I would have done to him also. So he did a great job there. And the third thing was I sat there so long, and it was 52 degrees outside, my visor started fogging up on me. So now I have a visor fogging, I've rushed myself, and I've tried, and I've thought about trying to stage properly, and you know what I should have done is just went up and tried to win the race.
You also talked last night about a very interesting plane ride home. You had to go with your owner, Alan Johnson, back out to California. Alan's been doing it a long time. We were just talking. Was there even much conversation? Did anything even have to be said about the situation?
We spoke a little bit about it on the car ride to the airport, and once we got on the airplane, basically, you know, we talked about the great run and how fast it was, and you know, if or when and if it'll ever even be broken, you know, there's no telling with rule changes and things that are going to come along over the next few years if that'll even, I mean, that could go down possibly as one of the fastest runs and maybe the fastest, quickest run ever. So we spoke about that, and no, I mean, we talked about blower cases. We had John Rodak with us.
Normal stuff.
John Rodak's a great guy, and we talked machinery with him, and that's about it.
You mentioned also, and it was a very funny moment, probably the funniest thing I've ever heard you say, 6 beers certainly made you feel better. If I know Alan Johnson right, let me guess, it was Pacifico, correct?
It was Pacifico, and it was, after 6 I felt better. I bet the next 6 made me feel even a little bit better.
But you also pointed out you have a beautiful wife, great kids, life is great, and it's that kind of perspective that's allowing you to get over this. At what point over the last 2 weeks did the focus shift and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, it does happen. It is drag racing, and I do have all these good things going for me.
A couple days into it, you know, I got home for a couple days, and again, you know, everybody's talking about it, and my friends are all calling me up, and finally, you know, after about 2 or 3 days, I'm in the shop, and I'm working with my dad, and I could just feel kind of I felt at ease a little bit, and I started thinking about, you know, here I'm working with my dad again, I'm going home, and I'm seeing my wife and my kids, and everybody's healthy, and, you know, I thought, you know, what it is, it's a drag race, and it's my job, and I love it, but you know, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly, and that's about the best way to put it. Del, thank you so much for being so candid once again. And hey, Paul and Mike, you think he's at all interested in watching to see what's going to happen to the point leader coming up in this session?
Oh, I'm guessing he's going to have some.
Just a little, some interest.
Just a little bit.
Was he seen wandering around the back of Massey's car at any time there?
He's been actually here the entire time, nowhere near the Fran pit, so he's watching from afar.
Good guy, Del Worship. Mike Edwards and Greg Anderson in Pro Stock as you've been watching the qualifying continue in Pro Stock. Well, how about Greg Anderson? He'll be coming up here on the line right now. Greg Anderson won Indy and was on top of the world. But 2 races later, after consecutive first-round losses, his championship dreams were crushed.
That is such a big hole. I just shot my foot there. Last week was bad. This week, I told you guys, was do or die, and I just shot myself with the foot. So obviously, I feel horrible. Obviously, I screwed up driving again. There's no excuse.
So Greg Anderson, and you take a look at how he's gone from the points that he had plus 53 at the U.S. Nationals, and then once the countdown gets going, just falling steadily.
Well, you talk about the highest of highs and lowest of lows. Winning the U.S. Nationals, it doesn't get any better than that. Then going out in the first round, the first 2 races, boy, that really hurts. But you know, Greg Anderson, he's won championships. He knows how to win them. But right now, he's basically conceded to his teammate Jason Line, but he really wants to finish 1 and 2 in the points, so he's still going to focus on trying to do the best he can. Right now, you got Mike Edwards in the other lane, currently your #1 qualifier, and it looks like he's starting to turn his program around.
Mike Edwards gets out of it. Greg Anderson gets it down the track. 6:63 at 207 miles an hour. But that run in the heat of the afternoon in the last session of qualifying doesn't change anything. Mike Edwards remains #1, and Greg Anderson remains in 3rd. And here is the Lucas Oil Pro Stock ladder. On this side of the ladder, everybody that's in the countdown has got a bye. But, you know, Jason Line is still the guy.
Well, on the other side of the ladder, we got countdown contenders matched up between Jason Line and Shane Gray, and Alan Johnson and Greg Stanfield going to go at it in the first round.